Hello everyone and welcome to our latest webinar of the art of cyber war. Today we have a great webinar and an even better presenter for you. I love this title, How to Stop the Bad Guys Getting Their Hands on Your Crown Jewels. And we are delighted to be joined by Lisa Burton, who is the CEO of Legal Data Workspace. Now, before we get into what she has to offer, I'm just going to say a big thank you to you for joining us today. ESET are putting these webinars on monthly, and although we're taking the summer off, we're looking forward to kicking off again in September. I'm also joined here by another ESET colleague, Nathan Holmes, who's going to go through a few things in a minute with you, all about ESET and how it all ties into what Lisa's going to talk about. Now, just a tiny bit on Lisa. I'm impressed with her LinkedIn and her resume. She is multi-award winning in an area that probably sometimes gets forgotten about, compliance. Now, usually people think about the word compliance and go, oh my gosh. But there's one thing that I noticed about Lisa. She actually makes compliance very, very interesting. And I've already had a look at her presentation. It's going to fill you with lots of knowledge, and I'm sure you're going to ask lots of questions. And if you do want to ask any questions, she's willing to answer them at the end. Throw them into the question box, which you should be able to find on the screen, and throw in any questions and I'll answer them at the end. Now, just before I hand over to Nathan, I must say, we were chatting earlier, me, Nathan, and Lisa, about absolutely everything. If only that could have been maybe the next webinar. We probably covered everything you can possibly imagine and then some. Luckily, that wasn't recorded because some of it was a bit on the edge, but hey, I hope that won't come back out now. So anyway, I'm going to pass you over to Nathan. He's going to give you a little run through about ESET, and it's going to go over to Lisa after that, and then back to me later on. So you're in good hands, and enjoy what is to come.
Thank you, Jake. Yes, I'm going to do the Who is ESET. Now, any of you who were listening last time, this is going to be very similar blurb, but I understand that we always have a wide range of kind of knowledge and understanding from that side of things. So I'm going to run through a kind of a relevant and succinct list as I can to give you an idea of who we are as a company. So at the very basic, we are a digital security company. We used to be antivirus, then anti-malware, but now digital security, which not only reflects the expansion of attack vectors, but also the attack surfaces as we collectively embraced all of the good things that the internet-based e-commerce has brought to our global economy. The interesting thing is, it's 30 years in the industry. We're based out of Slovakia in Europe, which at the moment is a very interesting point that I'll go on to later. Privately owned, meaning that we are not beholden to shareholders, stakeholders, or anything else from that side of things. Still relevant from there. The interesting thing is we are actually the largest European-based security vendor and fourth largest company of our type in the world to protect directly around 110. I think the last figure I saw was around 165 million endpoints globally that we protect from that side of things. And also, this figure is debatable at the best of times. Around 2 billion users of our software daily. Now, what I mean to say by that is we're actually in the back end of Google Chrome and the Google App Store. The last Google, ironically, that I did about daily users of their web sort of tools is around 4 billion users of their software daily, and they have 40% of the web market share. Now, why that is of interest is the fact that our software is the protection layer in the back end, meaning we are collecting an awful lot of data when it comes to security. Present in over 200 countries worldwide, with over 22 R&D centers. Out of 2,000 plus employees, roughly around 40% of our staff are directly involved in R&D. Very useful statistics when we want to know, is your company or your AV vendor putting everything they can into your layers of protection? We certainly believe that that's exactly what we need to do. So what that adds to is a wide portfolio of protection solutions from consumer all the way to large enterprise, from granny to Google, which is a term I am going to use increasingly more because it makes me giggle, all of this kind of stuff. What many people aren't aware of, and what's interesting about where we sit, especially in the marketplace today, is our connection with the intelligence agencies around the globe. We provide threat intelligence to and work closely with organizations such as GCHQ, FBI, CIA, Interpol, Europol, Other acronyms are most likely available when talking about this, but we help with activities of organised crime and gangs and malicious nation-state actors on almost a daily basis. Talking about being Slovakian-based, obviously, as we all know, what's happening in Ukraine, geographically being right next door, we are collecting an awful lot of information and an awful lot of relevant information for what's being detected in the real world state when it comes to threat. It's fair to say that we are probably considered not only a digital security company, but a threat intelligence-based company. Intelligence helps us to create solutions and services to stay ahead of these threats and to help protect individuals and organizations from malicious and damaging activities. Threat reports and threat intel feeds are becoming more and more important to a wider range of organizations directly, and this is an area of expertise that we as ESET are able to offer. Of course, practical solutions that we do, our services, solutions and products have evolved over time to become multi-layered to combat the proliferation of attack vectors exploited by increasingly sophisticated cyber criminals. So these threat reports and intel feeds are yet another layer of defense and part of a wider portfolio of solutions. So it's important that they are delivered by experts in the area. And as I said, ESET is just that. Appreciate that that was a lot of ESET gumph, but going back into the art of cyber war, where does this all fit in? These questions will be answered, but I just want to say that we, Lisa included, believe that by understanding how certain breaches occurred, we hope to help you understand and prevent such occurrences in the future, to add a further layer of security to your sort of business's knowledge. It could be argued that knowing more about your threat actors is as important as deploying the right solutions to protect you from them, and that's what we're trying to sort of address in this. Now, before I hand over to Lisa, as Jake said, we were having a long conversation, and Lisa and I have had plenty to do with each other in my career at ESET. I am a huge fan of the conversation that she is about to bring to the table around data, because as someone who talks about data or security on pretty much a daily basis and who has made a career out of it, one of the things I think that has been missing for a very long time is what importance data has to you as organizations to protecting yourselves in the cybersecurity landscape. Now, I'm not going to steal any more of your thunder there, Lisa. I'll hand it across to you, but just wanted to say, very much looking forward to this. So,
thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Jake and Nathan, for having me join ESET and the webinar. Really excited to be here today. So let me talk to you. Hang on, can I, guys?
Yes.
I'm muted, number one. Sorry about that. I said thank you, Jake and Nathan, for handing over so beautifully. And now I should be able to run the slides. Is that right?
I can't see the slides.
Yeah, you should be able to see them on the box.
I can
Just
see them. Oh,
one of the pop-out bits should
there
say.
you are. There you are. Got it. Okay. Thank you. So hi everyone, and again thank you for that lovely intro. And I'm honestly always delighted and surprised when Nathan says he gets excited about data, because it is a very dry topic. So I hope that today's session is not going to be dry for you, and you'll get some real value out of it and some
Lisa,
really good tips.
Just to say, I can't see your slides. I don't know if the share's not gone on.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
I'm sorry to stop you in your role, because any opportunity where you can pick me up is obviously brilliant in my eyes, but
right, hang on a minute. Click screen, hang on.
There we go, up there. I can see it now, my darling.
Can you see it now? Yeah, great stuff. Sorry about that. Right, well, okay, so if you think about your data, and you think about, I'm just going to turn my camera off so that I can focus on the slides for a minute. If you think about your data and cybersecurity, today's session is all about how the two come together. So think of your cybersecurity in context of the city of Troy. So in this picture, you'll see, high lookout towers, really, really strong walls, okay? So the periphery of the city is protected by these walls that Troy became famous for. But if you look at all these dudes on their ponies going into the city. It would only take one of them to be carrying a nasty, disease to go in and attack all of the inhabitants within the city and steal the crown jewels. And that is where very often, as much as ESET has all these amazing, products to prevent, attack vectors and threats to get into your organizations, what we're going to focus on is why you need to use all of the ESET products and think about cybersecurity alongside how you protect your data. So if we, oh God, hang on, I can't use my, don't know why my slides aren't working. Anyway, okay, let's try that again. Can you see them all now?
Yep, still on there.
Okay, thanks. So if you think about what I've just said, here's your army, your cybersecurity, protecting your walls of your city, and here's your crown jewels, which are your data and your people. So this is what we're going to be focusing on today, because it's great to have this, but without protecting this, then your city is, is literally nothing. No, I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I'm having trouble with my down arrows on my slides.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
So hang on a minute. Now it's stuck. There we go. I might have to just go out and come back in every time. So there we are. In today's data-driven world, data privacy and cybersecurity can't be considered in isolation. So if you think about, Microsoft, Google, AWS, you've got all of these massive cloud networks that have their own inbuilt security, but your data that resides within those cloud environments, or indeed your customers' data that resides within those cloud environments, is at massive risk, okay? And we know this from cybersecurity statistics, which are horrific. But to illustrate the point further about, the combination of cyber and data protection, think about your home. You wouldn't put the alarm on, for example, and leave all your windows open. Or, you wouldn't go out of the house, lock up all the house, put the jewels in the safe, and then leave all the back door and the back gate open. So this is how you need to think about your organizational data. You have to take a holistic approach, okay? And to give you an example, if you get attacked, if you have a cyber attack, okay, and someone infiltrates your network, so think of, any of the big attacks that we've seen in the last few years, British Airways, EasyJet, they get into the networks, but it's not just the ransomware attack or the fact that they've actually penetrated into the networks, because as soon as they steal data, there is a legal duty that is imposed on the business, okay, because that data, certainly in the case of British Airways and EasyJet, contained hundreds and millions of thousands of, personal information relating to bank accounts, credit card numbers, names, addresses, etc., etc. Now, whilst technology and AI can be massively instrumental in helping bringing together a holistic framework for cyber and data protection, it is not a silver bullet, okay? And you know this, I'm sure everyone knows it, that you can get great technology, but unless it's deployed in the right way and it enhances existing policies that are operationally effective, then the technology alone isn't enough. Coupled with all of the increase in cyber attacks, I should say, because of that, and because of the amount of data that we are producing, so for example, we've produced all of the world's data in the last 2 years, all over again, and it's just continuing to speed up. So as a result of the amount of data that is being shared, circulated, illegally bought and sold, and legitimately bought and sold, the legal and regulatory landscape is just becoming much tighter, much stricter. So all of these acts that you see on this page are all coming out this year. So the one that I would draw to your attention, because it does expressly affect IT and cloud service providers, is the operational or the Digital Operations Resilience Act. Okay, that's coming out in August this year, so just literally a couple of months away. It's targeted at the financial services sector, but it will flow through to other markets because the EU, who have probably the most stringent data protection jurisdiction in the whole world, they absolutely understand that cloud and IT providers are storing masses and masses and masses of data on behalf of businesses. Those businesses, if you think of a John Lewis or Selfridges, those businesses have to rely on the fact that their customers trust them, so that when they give them their data and they share their credit card details with them, they're going to be compliant with the law. The legal duty of an organization is to be compliant with the law. So the Digital Operations Resilience Act is really coming in to bolster Part 32 of the GDPR, which is all about the security principles, where you have to show that your IT infrastructure that your legal duty relating to your IT infrastructure is compliant. Most people struggle with that because, as we're saying in this seminar today, you think about the IT infrastructure, but you don't think about the data. And that's where that gap falls, and that creates a massive risk. So the legal and regulatory landscape is going to get bigger and bigger. There will be more fines too, okay? So be aware of that. And it doesn't matter how big or how small your business, okay? Data protection law is applicable to everyone who trades as a business. The threat surface increase is horrifying. I attended a seminar last week where we did a deep dive into ransomware as a service, and it is just horrendous. These criminals are having a hell of a lot of fun at the moment. They are not only, demanding ransoms for stolen data, but they're actually courting employees, they're courting clients, they're courting third-party suppliers of these organizations, and they're saying basically, we'll pay you a shed load of money if you give us information that will allow us access into this organization. It's highly profitable, it's growing, it's incredible. Because of that, because virtual files in a cloud are easily accessible, the black market just has loads and loads and loads of cloud data that is up for sale illegally. And I can honestly say to you that any client that I work with, we invariably find leaked data, be it email addresses or some sort of data that is specific to an organization in the dark web. Okay, so you might say, okay, hasn't happened to me yet, probably not going to happen to me, I don't really care. That's what everyone says until you get breached. And then it becomes a much, much bigger issue. Because for anyone who is a director of a business, who owns a business and runs a business, there are fiduciary duties, okay? And that means that if you get breached or you have your data stolen or there's a problem with your data protection compliance, the ICO will not only get involved and knock on your door if it's bad enough, but worse, and this is something that I think we're going to see more of, the ICO and the FCA, who run all of the legal obligations as directors of businesses, have a memorandum of understanding, and now they're joining up. So if you have a data breach and you're a director of a business and you lose a hell of a lot of client data, there is a likelihood that the FCA might well knock on your door and go, hang on a minute, are you taking this seriously as directors? And I have been called in to help businesses where the FCA are doing an investigation, and it's horrible. Directors really sweat it out because these guys crawl all over the business. They might be looking for one thing, but invariably they'll uncover 5 other things. How are your contracts up to date? Have you got all the right relevant certifications that you should have, etc. So be aware of that as well, because the regulators are talking more and more and more to each other, because this threat surface increase is just growing and we haven't got our arms around it yet. So what can you do about it? So you need a data optimization strategy, which includes, a data management program, a data governance program, data quality program, right? What does that mean? Everyone goes, what does that mean? It's so boring. I agree, it is boring. But bear in mind that 90% of your data on your networks is what we call unstructured data. So that's all your communications data, emails, PowerPoints, Word documents, Teams chats, Google Hangouts, whatever it might be. All of that is what we call unstructured data, and that accounts, and we know this is fact, IBM, Microsoft, everyone agrees, is unstructured data, and that's the bit where the risk lurks, and it's hard to get to know what that risk looks like. Okay, so by having a data optimization strategy, you can then begin to really think about how you assess your risk within that data. So, what data do you have? What's the legal basis for having it? Where is it stored in your network or in your cloud instance? Do you have a defensible data retention and deletion policy? Most people interviewed by the Big Four and McKinsey, when I say people, organizations, on an effective incident response plan fail miserably. They might have one written, but it's never tested. So, I would strongly advise you create a fake phishing email, send it out to your employees, and I guarantee you that despite all the best training in the world, somebody will click on it, open it, and there you have it. It takes just one phishing email. So if you have an incident response plan, make sure you test it and it's effective. And it doesn't need to be complicated or difficult. It can be very easy, but you must test the written policy. 80% of cyber breaches come through supply chain. So there is a legal duty on you to make sure that your suppliers are also aware of their legal duties in regard to data protection. Okay, so take a luxury travel group that I'm working with. If I'm a customer of theirs and I book a golf tour and I'm going to, Spain, France, Germany, then I'm going to Botswana, then I'm going to California, okay, and I get breached in California, I'm not necessarily going to sue the hotel or the golf event place in California. I'm going to sue the travel group who booked all my trip, right? So you must take that really seriously, and suppliers need to be responsible for their own data protection compliance, and you need to check that. It's incumbent on you in law for you to check that. And then finally, think about a holistic approach. How would you do this? Because the clients that I work with, and I've worked with all of the regulators, I've worked with the SFO, the FCA, Ofcom, I'm instructed as a class action expert at the moment on the truck cartel. The thing that I find when I work with corporates, whether it's a cyber breach, it's a data compliance framework that I'm helping somebody put in, there are a lot of silos in businesses. So you have somebody who's responsible for cyber normally in the IT department, you have maybe compliance, you may have an outsourced DPO or an internal DPO, but everyone tends to work separately until there's a problem, and then it all lands on legal's desk. And that's when it can become really expensive and everyone's scrabbling around going, oh my God, what are we going to do? So think about your data protection compliance, your legal duty as an organization around your data. How would you do it more holistically? Who would you involve in that responsibility, that accountability? So I always advise, get a digital risk team established. And if you're a small business, okay, reach out to Nathan at ESET. ESET have, what I love about ESET is, yes, they have absolutely brilliant products and software, and they take security extremely seriously. But the fact that, you know, I am working with them in this capacity on the data compliance side says a lot about ESET's responsibility to their clients, okay? Because they know that you can buy all of their products, and if you have a breach, there will be a data protection impact, okay? So if you want to set up a digital risk team and you're not big enough to create your own internal one, then, you know, call on ESET. They'll come and sit, you know, as part of a board that meets every month or however regularly you deem fit. But digital risk teams are really effective vehicles in a business to manage data protection in terms of legal duty. It brings in cyber really effectively. It brings in all of your risks, okay? It can make your training for your staff 10 times more interesting, right? When I worked at PwC, we used to get these online training things, and I used to hate them. We used to leave them until the last minute. So training needs to come alive for your employees, and I would say a digital risk team who own it collectively can actually make it more fun and interesting. Send them a phishing email, a pretend phishing email. That really gets employees awake and thinking. And again, I can't labour the point enough. The crucial part of compliance is that it actually enhances cyber security. Cyber security alone is not enough, okay? So yeah, have a think about that. And as I say, I know Nathan and anyone at ESET you can reach out to, and they'll help you with that. Another big statistic is staggering. 20% of your business's data carries 80% of the risk. So it kind of leads back into that 90% of unstructured data. But if you can understand what data you have, where it resides, who owns it, who's responsible for it, how long you keep it, you know, do you understand your legal bases for keeping data as it relates to individuals, personal data? If you don't, again, you know, reach out to ESET because we can help you there as well. But you've got an awful lot of risk lurking in data, and people think that their cybersecurity is tickety-boo, all tied up, and then something goes wrong with the data and it impacts the cybersecurity. So again, just illustrating the two are very much aligned. I've already talked about you know, incident response plans and practicing those, but when businesses have a breach, it's really horrible. Gartner estimate that per breach, per seat cost is $4,500. Now, that's before you've even looked at how your networks were broken into, what data was stolen, just the absolute disruption that it causes, because, you know, systems have to be closed down, backups may have to be brought in, employees can't get into the system, you know, you have to think about how you're going to get back in, etc., etc. It's really painful and it's very costly, okay? So again, if you integrate privacy and security into one function, if there is a problem, you know, you'll know, everyone will know what to do. You know, who do you call if there's a problem, right? What do you do in the first hour? What do you do in the first 3 hours? What do you do in the first 24 hours? Is it actually legally a breach? Or is it just, well, I'll say just, it's never just, but has data been erroneously sent out of the business that could cause you a legal problem? Okay, we've all heard of, you know, government ministers sitting in a taxi drunk, leaving CDs in briefcases, right? So, you know, it doesn't have to be Armageddon, but it can be serious. So if you've sent a client, or if you put some, I don't know, very sensitive information in an email to a client, and somebody sends it to another client who you're charging 2/3 more for the same service or whatever it might be, you know, that's the sort of thing that can escalate very quickly into something nasty. So again, you know, integrating the functions are really, really effective. I've already mentioned supply chain and third-party risk. You know, third parties are, So just to give you an example, I did a global supplier compliance check for a tier 1 bank, okay? And all I can say to you is we were not really surprised when we found that 90% of the global supply chain to this tier 1 bank were non-compliant, not only with the bank's own policies, but with a lot of the law, a lot of the legal duties around data protection. So your third-party supply chain, you know, is really, really important. So, you know, if you contract with, you know, even Microsoft or Google, or every single one of them has to take data protection seriously. And I know Microsoft do, and I know Google do, because I work with a gold Microsoft partner. But, you know, there are still gaps, you know, that you need to be aware of. So there are some really cool applications that you can use to invite supply chain to engage with you on data protection compliance. Again, if you're interested in anything like that, reach out to Nathan and we can point you in the right direction. So if you think about having a holistic approach in your business to data protection and cybersecurity, you know, most boards go, nah, boring. You know, like I say, until there's a problem, most people go, okay, don't really care, think our risk is okay. You know, very often as well, I've just recently worked with a massive wealth fund manager of 25 billion portfolio. And the CIO's like, sorry, the CEO's like, you know, yeah, never been breached, we're okay, blah, blah, blah. And we did an assessment for them. They said, we've got a really strong IT team in South Africa, and, you know, we've got really strong cybersecurity. And when we did their assessment, their overall security, I think, you know, we said to them, well, A, it was very low, but we said to them, there's a perceived level of security and there's an actual level of security. So, you know, their GDPR score was, you know, 32%, dire, absolutely dire. So, and what this means is it's not about the law and it's not about the score. It's actually about the fact that, you know, if you don't comply with the law, then eventually it'll catch up with you. You know, a bit like if you know, criminal law, if you continue to steal and rob, the law will catch up with you. So, you know, the digital risk team that I talked about a little bit earlier, they can be really brilliant in just feeding up to the board in a very nice, neat way, so that the CEO doesn't have to get to know about cybersecurity in detail or data protection law, but the digital risk team can just make sure that the board are aware of the risks, that the risks are being managed and mitigated, and, you know, it's then they're accountable for it ultimately, but they can be appraised and informed in a way that is not too painful for them. So again, highly recommend a digital risk team. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about a case study, right? Because I think this illustrates the point around what we, you know, what I'm trying to say with ESET this afternoon, which is, you know, if you think about a casino and you think about all the technology they have and the security they have around their casinos, if you think about the high net worth customers that go into a casino, they may have the best technology, but if a casino is breached, it's heavily regulated, obviously the gaming industry. If the data gets breached, and when I say breached, it doesn't always mean a legal breach in the sense that the ICO would need to be informed. It can be, as I said earlier, a leak, sending an email erroneously, publishing stuff erroneously. You know, those people, those customers, they have the value sort of proposition for the casino is much more than just saying, yeah, we've got cybersecurity and we're legally compliant and regulated around your data, right? There's that trust, there's entertainment in the knowledge that the casino can actually do what it says it's going to do and look after the data. The technology is simply an enabler, okay? And, you know, I've seen loads, I have witnessed I worked with an insurance company who said, find me all the PII. So the third party that the insurance company contracted with did find all the PII, but created another 3.5 million records that the CIO then had to become responsible for, which wasn't really what they were looking to do. So, you know, there's technology can be an enabler, but it can also be a what can I say, a stumbling block, okay? But the point is to get your customers trusting you, to have a smooth customer journey, especially if you're an MSP or a cloud provider. You know, the trust and the service has got to be there. So in summary, you know, it isn't going to go away. It is really dry, the subject, you know, data protection compliance. It's so bloody boring. But the fact is, you know, all businesses will suffer a cyber attack because it is just growing by the minute, and ransomware as a service is, as horrific as it is to think about it, it's growing. It's becoming a very, very profitable market. You know, we all do so much online. The pandemic made us get our shopping online and buy more and more from Amazon. You know, every time we share our card information, or you know, we buy, all our buying profiles are captured, we know this. There is a risk there. So any data that you're housing on behalf of customers, you know, you have to make sure that you are fully aware of your legal duty as to looking after that and protecting it, along with your cybersecurity. I've already said digital risk team can be really effective. It can not only help the board understand the risk and report better to the board, but it can make training for your teams much, much more entertaining and fun. It brings it a bit more alive. And then, you know, you really, really do need to understand where your data is. So if you're, you know, either an MSP or you're helping, say, I don't know, well, number one, if you're an MSP and you're hosting data in the cloud, you have to be really vigilant. Number two, if you're helping a client migrate from on-prem to cloud or from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, so I have a client at the moment who's a global corporate, they are migrating from one jurisdiction into another, and so the US jurisdiction into an EU jurisdiction. The US jurisdiction is wholly different to EU, which is much more stringent. So, you know, there's quite a few issues there that need to be ironed out. And every time you do an update, or you know, if you're Microsoft or Google, they're evergreen platforms. They're always being updated every night. You know, SharePoint's updated, Teams is updated. That can actually nullify whatever you set up by way of compliance and monitoring. So just be aware of that as well. I'm going to stop there and take questions, if that's okay. Oh, Jake, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. You can't go through a webinar these days without that phrase, so thank you.
Well, you're on mute.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much, Lisa. That's great. I can't see you though. It'd be nice to see you for these questions.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I turned my camera off when I was doing all the slides. Here I am.
There we go. You're still there, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about ransomware as a service. Just while anyone, sorry, we've got a couple of questions already coming in. So, but just firstly, what crosses my mind is, where does ransomware as a service stop? Because you say how it's increased so much, some huge hard-hitting stats on there, and I'm looking for this all the time too. But what, in your opinion, where does this stop? Is it just going to completely increase at a rate that we can't control?
Yeah, I think so. I think the reason why they have so much you know, expansion to grow or opportunity to grow, Jake, is because of the very reason we're here today. People don't look after their data as much as they look after their cybersecurity. So, you know, you have to bring your data in with your cybersecurity, and then maybe people will have a chance of keeping these guys out. Okay, but you know, if they get in and they nick your data, that's it. So, and like I say, cybersecurity isn't always the solution to preventing them from getting in the first place. It's mainly human error, actually. It's things like power failures, human error, you know, bad processes. So yeah, so it's not going to stop until people think differently, work differently.
Yeah, I always like discussing simulation attacks with businesses. I really feel that really hits home and gets them to realize, because so many are just stuck in the head in the sand, thinking they're not going to come after us.
Yes, exactly.
But I bet this is your day-to-day job, to make them understand and take note. So I've got some questions coming in. One is from a Mason Bones. I don't even know if that's a real name, but Mason Bones says, how does Microsoft manage data compliance?
Okay, interesting. So Microsoft take data compliance extremely seriously. But as we know, Microsoft, dare I say it, I am going to say it, and if anyone wants to reach out to me afterwards and kill me, that's up to them. But Microsoft are kind of jack of all trades, master of none. So I love Microsoft. I'm a Microsoft fan. I love the platform. Okay, I've used Google Business at PwC as well. I did work with a Gold Microsoft partner on the Compliance Centre, and we delivered workshops that Microsoft paid for organisations to get their heads around the Compliance Centre. And it's good, but to my point that I made earlier, if you use Microsoft Compliance to set up a compliance framework within your Microsoft instance, you know, there are issues. If they upgrade Teams, or they juggle a bit down here, it'll impact all of your compliance framework. Okay, so the same with data mining. If you have a problem and you have to data mine, I know E3 and E5 have e-discovery capabilities, but because you can't snapshot the data at any given time, I actually worked with the Met Police a couple of years ago, and the guy goes, Lisa, I can't get the same results in my 365 searches. And I'm like, well, you won't, because you did one yesterday and overnight Microsoft have done something, and it's just ongoing, right? It never stops. So, you know, the bottom line is, if you have to go to a court of law and say, hello, judge, here's how we got this data, here's how the evidence came, Microsoft and Google are moving fests, so it's very difficult to get that. And it's the same with compliance. It's very, very difficult to pin down a compliance framework that is truly effective within those platforms. It should be part of your compliance framework, but it can't be the whole thing. Does that answer that question for Mason?
Pretty good. I got another question that's come in. It's about Cyber Essentials. Is Cyber Essentials 1, let's call it, okay, or is it best to go for Cyber Essentials Plus?
So there's a big price difference between Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. You know, being pragmatic, I would always go for the top level if you can, but at a very minimum, get Cyber Essentials. Okay, that's, you know, something is better than nothing. And as soon as you can, go to Cyber Essentials Plus.
Okay. I've got one from Ed, and he asks, for a small, medium-sized business, what 3 actions would you recommend to take first when trying to protect against ransomware?
Okay, so one is I would create a digital risk team consisting of IT, compliance, DPO, legal, if you have that. If you're a small to medium business, not sure you'll have all of those, but you'll have IT, and you'll have probably someone, maybe a chief risk person or a CIO or something like that, or an external DPO, but get that risk team built. Okay. 2, understand where your data is. So what data have you got? Where does it reside? Why have you got it? What's the legal basis for keeping it? Okay.
That's probably the hardest thing to find with businesses, knowing where their data is.
It is really, really hard. But again, if you have, you know, poor DPOs, right, they get labored with all of this, that it's all great to write policies and put it in place, but I don't think it's fair to land it on the DPO or the head of IT, or do you know what I mean? Which is why it's a collective responsibility that needs to be managed collectively by the business. Okay. So yeah, create your team, look at your data, know where your data is, okay, and what you can do to make sure it's managed and properly sort of, what can I say, secured. And by that I don't mean, you know, cyber stuff. I mean, look at your data, look at where you store it, who can access it, you know, what are your multi-levels of security across that data. And then thirdly, I would, you know, possibly, if you do those two things, talk to your insurance company and make sure that you've got the relevant insurances in place. Because if insurance companies, and for years they were underwriting cyber insurance and they didn't really understand what the hell they were writing about, now they do. And if you can show that you have taken real steps as a business to take your legal duties as it relates to your data security, you know, really seriously, then, you know, you can shore up your insurance or lower your premium. But either way, you know, insurance is a big factor, because when people get hit with ransomware, I know many times cyber insurance doesn't pay out. So 3 things, yeah.
Good points. And I like your bit about insurance. There's always a big argument, especially on Twitter, around should they or shouldn't they go for insurance. Always a bit of a fun one. Yeah, nice to have a take on that. Thanks. I've got another question here. What should a small business do to be protected by the new law? I think this came in when you were talking about the laws. And what are the minimum requirements?
So, like I said, the new law, if you're referring to the Digital Operation, the Resilience Act coming out in August, it's really, I call it Part 32 of GDPR on steroids, right? Which is all about the security principle. So what you can do is, you know, what I've said already is you need to be able to show accountability as it relates to the data that you're storing on networks, in clouds, and you have to understand more about your data. So, you know, I would say one of the things that we can offer through ESET is we can do a DORA readiness assessment or a GDPR assessment for very low cost, fixed fee, just to get you into a place of knowledge to say, you know, where actually are we, where's our risk, okay? Because, you know, you need to look at your data estate, your cyber security, your insurances, your training, your operations, your risk register. You know, how do you keep your risk register? Most people keep it on Excel spreadsheets. That's not enough. That's not going to help. You need to understand your legal basis for keeping data. So there's a whole myriad there. If you are GDPR mature in your compliance level, then you'll probably be okay for DORA. But again, I would say, you know, spend a tiny bit of money, get an assessment. It's worth it, probably. I'm not pitching, by the way, whether you come to me or anyone else, but there's a lot of things out there that you can do to get a feel of how mature or not you are.
Lisa, you have just literally said one of my favorite terms when it comes to talking about security, and it's risk register.
Yes.
Because I don't think enough people consider the fact that it is something that they actually need to do, which is put down on a piece of paper, Excel, whatever it is that you need to do in the bare essential forms, exactly what you have and haven't had, or do and don't have, and what the risks are associated to both. And I think there is something to be said, as I said at the beginning, I'm a huge fan of this conversation anyway, but there is something really honest about the world of cyber, or has to be honest about the world of cyber now compared to where it used to be even 4 years ago, you know, when GDPR was first being implemented, which is we have moved to a digital world, as you said. Everything we do now, more so than ever before, is digital.
Absolutely.
And to have the nous and the honesty to turn around as an organization and go, this is what we got, this is where we haven't, and come up with a strategy to protect yourselves, because essentially it is your responsibility, is wonderful. I wish more people I spoke to said, oh, we've done our risk register and these are the reasons why we're talking to you, because we know that we've got to do da-da-da.
Exactly.
That would make life so much easier and things like that. So I love that comment. I mean, just to expand on, I guess, Jake's question there, is a lot of what you spoke about legislation-wise was EU-based. I guess question for a lot of UK businesses, especially when we still were going through Brexit, not Brexit, whatever it is that's going through, is what will that trickle down to for my UK business?
Yeah, it will. So the UK Data Protection Act 2018 is an exact mirror of the GDPR. Okay, so even though Brexit is in place now, all of the data protection laws will trickle through to the UK. Importantly, though, and people forget this, if you have even an employee in your team who is not UK based and they're an EU citizen, then the GDPR will apply to you. So if you have a client in the EU, or you have an employee, or you have any dealings with Europe, then you will fall both under Data Protection Act UK and GDPR in the EU. And then you'll also be DORA and all of those things. All of these new legislations that have come out have been politically agreed. DORA was politically agreed by the UK too in May this year. Okay, Network Information Security Directive, which was again EU driven, is being upgraded to NIS2 this year. That's politically agreed between all, many countries of NATO. So, don't think that because you're in the UK, you're all like, it's fine, we don't have to worry about that, because it ain't. You will get, they'll be trickling through.
Thank you.
Well, Lisa, you talk a lot of sense, and I imagine everyone watching is going to want to know more. And it made me think, can people follow you, LinkedIn, Twitter? What's your platform of choice, and can they ask questions?
I'm not a big Twitter fan. I'm actually not a great social media fan for reasons that I hope I've probably explained today. But yeah, LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn, reach out to me, always happy to ask questions. And like I say, I think ESET, you guys are doing a great job by being aware of this and raising awareness.
Thanks.
Really. And I think that, for anybody who's your customers, they'll have customers. And that's the key point, that we're protecting, consumers, because so much of our data is illegally bought and sold. And that's what my purpose is to help businesses make their customers feel safe and secure and happy that we're taking their data very seriously. So, yeah.
So I always love it when you hear a company gets hacked, and that's the time when they tell everyone, we look after your data and we take it very seriously.
Exactly.
Smiling. But I love the fact you're actually saying that before anything's happened, because that's what it should be. But anyway, like I say, you talk a lot of sense, and thank you. I'm going to wrap it up actually, because we've run out of questions and run out of time. And I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Lisa. From Legal Data Workspace. You've been brilliant. It's been another excellent webinar. A huge thank you to Nathan as well. Always love presenting these with you. We've got another one. It's back in September, 8th of September. And I'm not sure of the title of that one yet, but keep looking out in your inboxes and on our Twitter channels and so on. You'll be able to find out more about that. And so, big thank you to...
Sorry for the wobble on the slides at the beginning, everyone, as well. But yeah, it's live webinars, right? Okay. But thank you. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Great. I just want to throw out a big thank you to a couple of people in the background. Steve for creating this, and Lewis for making it all happen. So a big thanks to those as well. And hopefully we shall see you all again soon.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.